Welcome to another Overpaid Over the Bar FPL Mini League video. Today, not going to be a long one. Going to do a recap of the last game week, which was 27, looking at game week 28 fixtures. And we're also looking at possible chips for the game weeks ahead, although at the moment, it's very difficult to know what to do. But I say it's just me today. Couldn't I've been away in north of Portugal, so didn't sort out another person on the video. Maybe next week can do that. Um, interesting, very interesting Champions League games this week with Liverpool absolutely sc scumming it against PSG. Most jammy win you've ever seen. I mean, PSG was superb in this game. um, and made Liverpool look really. I mean, Liverpool. To be fair, Liverpool did defend well and then organised well, and their concentration was amazing. I mean, that's one thing under Slot you can say is that the players look focused all the time, every single player. In the second half, you could really see them growing in confidence as they somehow. Well, I mean, if it hadn't been for the goalkeeper, Alisson, they obviously would have lost this game. But even so, I was impressed by their spirit. Um, because that PSG performance was probably the best performance I've ever seen with the team not scoring a goal. I mean, they were absolutely brilliant. I can't remember a better one, but I mean, obviously there's probably a better one, but they were absolutely amazing, especially on the wings and in central midfield. I mean, that it's an incredible team, and you can't rule them out of getting a result at Anfield after that because they've done it now against several teams this season, PSG, although they do tend to prefer playing at home, and that's been reflected in their results in the Champions League up to this point. So um, perhaps it's just Liverpool season, isn't it? It just looks like that. I mean, I don't see Liverpool winning the Champions League personally. I think to be on the same form all the way through the season, which is basically what that means, is such a big ask. And I do see Liverpool not necessarily falling off a bit in the next few weeks, but the levels dropping. But that's just a hunch. It's not based on anything, not based on anything football wise, because they're central midfield players. I mean, Gravenberch and Szoboszlai were not great last night at all. They gave the ball away a lot. But they have had a great season, and we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. Anyway, back to fancy football, which is why we're all here. So let's have a look at uh, last week's games, last week's scores. So um, what we can see, uh, if you can see that, I think you can see that. Yeah, what you can see is that the top three all had a good game week, and actually these are all good scores on last week's um, average totals, average game week scores. And Piers had a particularly good score on 75. He was the best scoring player in the whole mini league. That was pretty impressive. How did he do that? Well, he had Nkunku, which was I mean, got him off the bench. He put him on the bench, and luckily for him, he didn't play Isaac, so Nkunku came off the bench. A little bit of luck in there. Same with my score. I got Cliver off the bench, who I didn't put in there. I didn't put ahead of anyone in the first 11. So perhaps Tom could complain that we both got a bit lucky behind him there, but I didn't gain any ground on Tom. Piers did, and Piers is looking a bit better now in terms of the possible running. I mean, if you look at the difference here, that's 40 points. I'm 53 behind Tom. These are not big margins in when you have double game weeks and stuff like this. But of course, Tom could stretch his lead in the same way. He could stretch his lead to further over those periods. So it's going to be interesting. And you can't rule out players behind here because of massive swings that can occur in the double game weeks and blank game weeks that are ahead. So this week's fixtures, um, we, I mean, Nottingham Forest, Man City, we have no, I mean, that could go either way. Um, it depends which team turns up, basically. And if they both do, it could be a draw. Um, brilliant analysis. Brighton, Fulham. I mean, both teams are on form at the moment. Brighton have rescued their mid-season slump. Fulham look very good to me every time I see them play. They just look very well organized, and everybody seems to be knowing what each other's doing in that team. You can't really say that of Brighton. They have these hot and cold sort of runs. I would say Fulham could get a draw or even win that, but who knows? Palace Ipswich. If you've got Palace assets, you're probably rubbing your hands a bit there because Ipswich defending is not that great, and Palace have some great attacking assets. But of course, Jean-Philippe Mateta, one of the best strikers in the Premier League, probably the second best or third best in the Premier League, is out now. So he got kicked in the head at Millwall, which has happened to a lot of people in Millwall over the years, but not necessarily on the pitch. And he'll be out of the lineup. So Eze would be a good shout. Um, yeah, I mean, you might want to go for another striker instead of Mateta because they'll score goals, but it's just for that game week, really, isn't it? Liverpool, Southampton. This this looks like a great fixture for your Liverpool assets, but it might not be. Um, they have the game against PSG on the Wednesday following, the Tuesday following, which is very tightly, delicately poised. So I would be wary of banking on players like Trent Alexander-Arnold starting this game. In fact, I think he won't, but I mean, we'll see. Salah has just started Ramadan, and the first week of Ramadan is more difficult to. I had once fasted all the days of Ramadan, so I do know this. The first week of Ramadan, it's more difficult to get the energy levels balanced than the following weeks. So I just saw him at the PSG game and thought he's definitely not got his energy levels up to where they should be. Although, of course, it's after. I mean, at the end of the day, it shouldn't be too much of a problem because the fasting has finished, and by a good couple of hours in Paris at 8:40, 8 o'clock in March. But I I just think there's a possibility I may very well captain Cole Palmer on this game week. Salah will start, but how many minutes will he do? Um, Southampton have a very bad defense, but they selected a very strange team last week. The fans were like, why isn't Harwood Bellis starting and all that? I just think that they're not as bad defensively as we sometimes think they are. I just think there's a chance that Chelsea do more damage to Leicester than Liverpool do to Southampton. Um, I certainly think Piers' and Nkunku shout is a very good one again for the Chelsea-Leicester game. Um, but really, of course, you're very happy if you've got Liverpool assets for this game, and maybe I'm overthinking this. It will be very straightforward, 5-0, whatever, and Salah gets a hat trick. Brentford, Aston Villa. Aston Villa are in the FA Cup. They're in the Champions League, and they're playing 2 games a week every week. I would say that they cannot, with their squad, cannot sustain the levels. They've got good attacking players, but defensively they're a little bit shaky, especially in defensive midfield. I think I don't think the current defensive midfield players provide enough protection for the defense. Um, this game, I think Brentford will win it. I think Brentford are going to win this game, but that's just me. Wolves, Everton. I mean, Wolves have lost Cunha. Cunha does absolutely everything for Wolves. He takes all the set pieces. He creates all the stuff out of nothing. He's a tremendous football player, a bit of a head case, but an amazing football player. Um, Everton, I think Everton will win this, and I think Everton will win this to nil. I think it'll be 1-2 nil. Chelsea, Leicester, we talked about, could be anything up 3-0 on upwards, or 4-1, 5-1, whatever. Spurs, Bournemouth. I mean, they lost to Manchester City, Spurs, but they won the previous three games and they keep getting players back. Bournemouth haven't looked as great in recent weeks as they did, but I'm expecting I'm expecting Spurs to win that. We'll see. Um, by the way, Spurs assets shouldn't be overlooked. Uh, I'm looking at Pedro Porro in particular. I really want to buy Jed Spence because I love him so much, but he doesn't. He's not guaranteed to start every game. Manchester United, Arsenal, Arsenal. I mean, they have played in midweek, but they weren't really stretched by PSV, and they won't have to select a proper team to play PSV next week. I mean, you do fancy Arsenal to go there and close that game down. Um, they're exactly everything that Manchester United are not. They make sure that the other team doesn't play, and then they take, they got creative players up front to create chances, which Manchester United lack, apart from Bruno Fernandes now. Uh, Finally, West Ham, Newcastle. I don't know. Isak is out. Oh, we don't know that. Sorry. Lewis Hall is out, is what I meant to say. Isak possibly out, but he's not flagged on the app at the moment. West Ham looking much better. I think West Ham might win that. Yeah, I think West Ham might win that. So chip strategy for the games ahead now. Um, what we know and what we don't know. So this is basically it. Game week 29, you can see on your screen, game week 29 is a blank game week. You may want to free hit this week. It's a good idea not to free hit in game week 29 because you're going to need all your chips. And most of us have free hit, bench boosts, and wildcard left. Piers has assistant manager instead of the free hit. Um, you don't want to be using any of those until we know the fixtures. Now, we will not know the fixtures for game weeks 32, 3, and 4 until game week 31 um, is announced. It is like the deadline for game week. So we can see there, game week 32. Sorry, we do know game week 32. Game week 32 is a double game week featuring Newcastle and Crystal Palace. It won't have any other fixtures. So we know up to game week 32. It's game weeks 33 and 34. The fixtures in these game weeks depend on the FA Cup semi-finalists, and we won't know those until I think around the deadline for game week 31. And when you find those out, you'll know how to manage the chips. Well, I mean, there are various strategies you could use with free hits and bench boosts and wildcards. But certainly, I would even hold off with the wildcard until you know those. But so it could be game week 31 where you decide to play the wildcard. Game week 30 fixtures, there's some tasty ones in there as well. So when you're planning for next week, game week 39, 29, the blank, have a look at game week 30 at the same time. Don't just look at the blank. Look at game week 30 because you've got a few really nice fixtures in here. Manchester City are playing Leicester at home in game week 30. So in the blank, they're playing Brighton at home. They've got two home fixtures. They've got no other fixtures on their calendar apart from FA Cup. I would say that they're worth looking at for this. You've also got in the same uh, game week as that, you've got Palace are at Southampton, and then Palace double in 32, right? So Palace assets as well from game week 30 look really nice. Um, Liverpool playing Everton at home. Liverpool's fixtures are honestly they'll have the league wrapped up by the end of April, no doubt. There are four fixtures in May, so by game week 34, I think they'll have the, if not earlier, they'll have the league wrapped up. They've got Everton at home, Fulham away, West Ham at home. Yeah, so sorry, I'm deviating here, so excuse me. So we're looking at the chips. One idea is to wild card in 31 when you know the fixtures for game weeks 32 and 33, because the teams playing in the FA Cup semi-finals will blank in 33, but they will probably not completely 100% confirm, but they very probably double in 32. So fixtures in 33 that might not happen, for example, Everton, Manchester City. Manchester City will double in 32 with that Everton game going into 32 with Crystal Palace at home for Manchester City. So that kind of thing will be revealed later. Very likely Manchester City will be in the FA Cup semi-final. So that's one thing you could kind of plan around for that. But you could wildcard in 31 with Manchester City players. Um, you also need Newcastle and Palace, but the teams that double in 32 will obviously blank in 33. So if you're wildcarding in 31 and you get lots of people, lots of players in for 32 that are doubling in 32, you'd then have to free hit in 33 to cover the fact that you don't have players in 33. And that should work, to be fair. But let's talk about it all later, because at the moment it's just not, it's not really it's not clear enough. There are other strategies. If you really want to check this shit out, you can go to Planet FPL, did a big podcast on this. Actually, Raptor, uh, and I know some of you watch it. I know that Tom, and I think Tom watches Raptor, or is it Harry? Tom watches, and I know Craig might do, but Raptor did quite a good one yesterday. I saw that about possible strategies. So if you really want to check this shit out now, but I'm personally just waiting until things are clearer, because at the minute I it's just way too unclear. But I mean, I'm just looking at game week 29 and what players do I need? What Manchester City players can I get in for game week 29? I mean, for this week, there are a lot of emergency transfers that have to be made in terms of Cunha, Mateta, Gordon, and Lewis Hall. So lots of people will be making transfers based on the fact they don't have players available. They might not even have an 11 for game week 28. I've already made two transfers. I got rid of Lewis Hall. I got rid of uh, Cunha. So I won't tell you who I got in. You'll see that on Saturday. Don't want to give that away. Nothing you wouldn't think of yourself, of course. Nothing daring. I haven't got Haaland. Um, Maybe next week I'll get Haaland. So I'm looking at that as either Salah or um, what's his name? Palmer. Sorry, I had a blank. Sorry, excuse me. Um, Palmer or Salah next week I might sell to get in Haaland. I'm sure, as I always say at this point in the videos, nobody's watching by now anyway. If you are watching, please give the video a like. Thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. Good luck with your game week this week. And let's keep it positive, keep it happy. And see you next week.